The Maryland Senate voted to pass a sweeping climate change bill that accelerates the state's greenhouse gas reduction goals of making the state carbon neutral by 2045. However, the Senate chamber did not include a proposal that would have outlawed fossil fuels-based heating systems in new buildings. Now, Mark, why was there a carve-out that excluded new buildings? But it also, the chairman of the committee also admitted Maryland can't solve this problem all by themselves. So is there going to be a conflict between the Senate bill and the House bill, and will there be a bill?
Well, apparently, and I don't pretend to be able to predict how that will come out. It's worth noting that we're undergoing a very significant energy transition. Quite apart from the law, that's what's going forward. And part of that transition has been the use of natural gas. And as a result of using more natural gas, we've been able to cut back on, CO2 emitters such as coal, and that's helped us with that transition. So the challenge in this is really how long does natural gas work? It certainly has a lot of benefits, and I think that's probably in the details where really the government shouldn't be regulating to that detail, but probably should focus on other metrics such as perhaps some kind of fee in order to encourage the transition to take place, but allow for economics to dictate how quickly it takes place.
Well, Nancy, if the chairman of the Senate committee doesn't think the state of Maryland can solve the problem of the environment, we all know Montgomery County thinks that it can and likes to march down the road with its own drummer. The Montgomery County Climate Action Plan seeks to cut greenhouse gas emissions completely by 2035, 10 years before the proposed bill that the Senate passed. So, it does, on a macro level, and just as, for good governance, is it really good governance to have a county and a state not marching to the same standards? I mean, shouldn't, the state advance the standards and the counties, whose influence is relatively small in this in itself, follow the state, not vice versa?
Well, let's agree the environmental issues are important and really quite significant as we go forward, and very few people really want to accept that. But it is a fact. So Montgomery County likes to push the limit. That's what we've always done here. Of course, the devil is in the details. Maryland is about, I looked it up, is about 40% dependent on natural gas to fuel its electricity. So what the District of Columbia did recently was to establish a goal of moving to 100% renewable energy in the next decade or so. And I think that's a more relevant goal to look at, to create incentives for the industry to change its ways. But the reality is really quite different. Asking apartment builders to change the way they do business, to the way they retrofit, and asking existing building owners to retrofit their buildings is incredibly expensive. And is it a rational solution? I don't know. But if you don't push, you don't get anywhere. And I think that's been Montgomery County's view.
Well, I understand that, but it's to the point that Mark was making earlier, given the fact that we are involved in a worldwide crisis, that at its center point, at its focal point, is the question of whether energy and energy policy is a national security issue. Doesn't it seem that we have to incorporate those ideas as well into our environmental policy?
I think that this really underscores the fact that there are these very difficult trade-offs that we're experiencing as a result of the Russian invasion to Ukraine. It really makes more sense, rather than engaging in these sort of virtue signaling mandate, to allow for an economic process to move forward to enable this transition. I think DC going to all renewables is really counterproductive because it ends up not allowing for the surge capacity that you will need for a number of for a period of time to, for example, allow for cars to get recharged if they're electric, or to provide for cooling during peak times. Again, the mandate approach is counterproductive to what is a general objective that we are going through, that successfully is taking place in this country, and actually in this, the broader industrialized world. And it adds costs to it that will in fact create pushback. I think people are looking at what they're paying at the pump right now and wondering whether or not the energy mandates maybe don't quite make such sense.
Nancy.
Well, the other thing that I don't think Marylanders necessarily realize is that we rely for about 40% of our electricity. It comes from nuclear sources. And that is actually clean energy. And I'm not sure too many people want to support additional nuclear plants. But the bigger picture is a really tough one for people to swallow. We're so used to cheap gas. It's incredible. I mean, if we lived in Europe, I don't know what their numbers are. They're probably paying $15 a gallon. What translates into that much in Europe these days because of the increase in costs, and they're used to it, and they've changed their ways as a result of it. I don't know how else we do that. How else do we get people out of their gasoline fueled vehicles or depending upon gasoline to make things happen? The change has got to be financial and economic, as Mark says, and I think that's the way it happens.
Well, as I've said often on this show, my first real job was with the Department of Energy just after it was created in 1978. And at that time, it was all nuke all the way. Mm-hmm. And so I'm all in favor of additional nuclear energy. I think, through technology, we can solve the waste program, the problems, and it's proven to be a safe industry here in the United States. It's been more than almost 45 years since 3 Mile Island, and I think the fear factor should have subsided at this point because it is clean energy. So when we come back from this short break, what exactly is anti-racism? And should it be taught in Montgomery County Public Schools? Stay tuned.